think we underestimate how good a bunch of players that they are. They really are a good bunch of players, and that finishing the table does not signal the skill of a lot of them. They've got a lot of ballers in there.
West Ham left it late, but showed what it takes to win in a major European final. Man City joined them too, with a comfortable win over Internazionale. We are back for another episode of One Kick from Glory. It's just myself and Matthew here today, and we're going to be talking all things Europe, a little bit about the upcoming Premier League season, and some of our thoughts on some of the performances in those games. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm all right. Season's ended. I can breathe now. I can relax. No more palpitations, twitches, nervous of a weekend coming up and knowing full well that Chelsea are going to do something to upset me so we can naturally rest, relax. You know, they're on the beach. They don't deserve it because they've been on the beach since, November, which is a very long time. So hopefully you'll come back, seeing the fixtures and, give a bit of a confidence boost.
Of course. We are going to touch on Chelsea in a bit and talk about some news relating to them, but we're going to start off talking about the Europa Conference League champions, West Ham United. First time winning a trophy in over 50 years. Incredible achievement. Really happy for them. Really happy for what we saw. I know we said it at the previous podcast. We're really hopeful that they could pull it off and get that win, and they have done. But for me, I just really like the grit and the fight shown by the West Ham players, and especially in a game like that, of that magnitude, to come out, perform, get the win, and bring some trophy back. It was really nice to see. I mean, for you, Matt, when you look back on that game, what were your general thoughts about West Ham, and how happy are you for them to get that victory over the line?
They fought. They were under it for the first half. I was listening on the radio because I didn't catch the first half, and it just sounded like they were kind of under it. And it was always the kind of thing where the previous year when they were in the Europa semis, they got just caught short a little bit by slightly better teams. And I think they've learned their lesson this time where they found themselves in a competition, whereas it's more like, we'll go again this time where we'll learn we'll learn our experience from the Europa, we'll take it into the conference, we'll just absolutely shine through. Because if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they lost a single they lost a single game going into this, which shows you just how much more prepared they were for this, to take that experience. But they rode it, and then second half they get that penalty, whether it's a penalty, it's one of those 50-50 ones, but that's the rules say. But it's the character they've shown from going a goal down, and it was a fantastic goal by Jarrod Bowen. Absolutely fantastic goal. I was worried it was offside for a second. And, I hate that thing where they take away that moment where if it's offside, he looks silly and just takes away, and it's just like, oh no, what are they going to do from here? But no, they fought back. They defended well. They got. I think we underestimate how good a bunch of players that they are. They really are a good bunch of players, and that finishing the table does not signal the skill of a lot of them. They've got a lot of ballers in there. You've got Emerson. You've got Areola in goal, who used to be at PSG. You got Bowen, you got Cresswell, obviously you got the likes of Declan Rice, you got Miguel Antonio, and they got and a few others. They got some players. They have got their players and thoroughly deserved. And you know what? I'm so pleased for them. I was happier at that final than I was at the Champions League final. Let's say that their final was just better. It just was, guys. It just was, because they had to come back from some kind of adversity, and you felt it when they scored that goal. And you could felt the emotion in the commentators of when they put it away. Like West Ham, one of them kind of clubs, family club, doing it in the big time. Such a happy feeling, and the fans afterwards, their reactions. You'd have thought they won the Champions League. You'd have thought they won the Champions League. Getting just never thought they see this for their club. So really happy for them. Great fight back. Great goal from Bowen, and then that calls take the penalty. Was it Ben Rama?
Yeah.
Ben Rama. That calls take a penalty. Just absolutely no hesitation. Didn't test his heart rate. Didn't miss a beat. It was fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic. Good stuff. Well done, West Ham.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a highlight of seeing them pull it off. I mean, obviously, look, you think about David Moyes and his time at the club. Obviously, this season has not really panned out well for them from a domestic point of view. They managed to survive comfortably in the end, but in a situation for West Ham with the expectations they had starting the season, having had the Europa League run, getting to the semi-final, and they would have hoped to kick on this year and kind of done really well. Obviously, they won in Europe, which was great, but I think they would have hoped to have placed a lot higher in the league. I'm glad that David Moyes got that final redemption at the end. I think for you, just looking at how things panned out throughout this season, how much credit do you have to give to the West Ham ownership, and not just them, but also to David Moyes in being able to see this job through and get the silverware at the end of the day?
It just shows that, you don't have to necessarily have the hire and fire model to get what you want. They stuck with him. They had faith with him because they know what they know what he's capable of. I think he's qualified for Europe for them twice, I want to say, and not exactly breaking the bank on all these other players. They've had some great stars in the past. I think they had Haller, but he obviously went. They've had likes of Lanzini, Souček, Miguel Antonio's got obviously come through. They got likes of Fabianski and Areola. So what they're picking on is good players that are established in a certain standard in Europe without necessarily breaking them the bank. But their bread and butter has been the Premier League. And unless I'm mistaken, Moyes has never been relegated. Has he been relegated before? I don't think he's been relegated. I know we always think of that time he had at Manchester United, but before that, he was doing bits at Everton. I think he even got them once qualification at the Champions League. He got them finishing in fourth. He got them to an FA Cup final. He kept them as a relatively stable kind of thing. All right, they might have flirted with relegation a couple of times, but they never ever dropped. So it shows that how he's still a very experienced and established Premier League manager, and find that West Ham is we love a redemption in football, we love a redemption in life, and that his redemption arc is pretty much completed after that terrible time. He got hounded by social media at his time in Man United, which, let's be real, he was not ready for. Too big a challenge, big fish in a massive pond that is Manchester United was too much for him. And he hopped around a few other places. He found his kind of spot at West Ham. There are parallels between West Ham and Everton in terms of the level that they're at and the appeal of the club. There's parallels there. So I think that's his kind of happy medium, but that medium is something that he can do very, very good at. And the board, and they got heavily criticised, but this they got right and they got rewarded. All right, the league didn't work out, but they survived, but they got that all-important international European trophy, which is what they're wanting for. It was the very reason they moved to the stadium in the first place. That's the reason they went through tooth and nail. I remember a lot of fans were really upset when they lost to Berlin, but now, a few years later, foreshadowing is great. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. They're now at the point where they're able to, back the claim where it's this is why we wanted to come here. And next season could be back in the Europa League, and after that, who knows?
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. At the end of the day in football, you do want to be on the end of those moments of glory, lifting up silverware, seeing your team progress. And I think for them, they definitely had a great season. We're really happy with the progress. And they've got something they can build on now. And like you said, they've got another season in European football with the Europa League this time. So they might look at it and think, okay, let's have a bigger fist of things and let's have a better go and see how things end up. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about transfer talk, and I'll refer to him now since we were talking about his club. And the current captain, Declan Rice, has been subject to a bid from Arsenal. There's been a lot of talk, I think, since December, January, about Arsenal being the club that are most likely to be Declan Rice's next destination. Obviously, the two clubs need to agree a fee and work out the structure of that deal, and that's probably part of the negotiations ongoing. But how do you think, when you look at the prospect of Declan Rice moving from West Ham, just won the Europa Conference League as captain, moving to Arsenal, how do you think that's going to help his career and ultimately help Arsenal progress?
It's good for him to grow. I mean, as good as he has been for West Ham, and then as good as he would be if he were to stay with West Ham, it's always going to come back to the thing of a what if, where West Ham, they're a fantastic club. They're a great club. Very historic. They'll claim they won the World Cup in 1966. I'm not there to argue that. But as established before, they have a ceiling. They do, at this current moment in time, they have a ceiling. Their appeal will only go to so far. Whereas, considering a team like Arsenal, where you were fingertips away from the Premier League the season just gone, that speaks. All right, you didn't take any silverware, but in hindsight, of what you were able to achieve, you're only 5 points behind the team that won the treble. That's true. So, the gap is only so thin. And over the last 3 years, like you said before, you finished, I think you one time you finished 8th, but you won the FA Cup. You finished 5th, just outside the top 4. You were 5 points away from treble winners. So that shows steady progress year after year after year. So it shows a good sign for where you want to be next year. And I think him going there, coming to your club at the time of your ascendancy, will only benefit both clubs. And but better still, it's going to improve everyone around you. You know, that hole that we're eventually left by Xhaka once he goes like Bayern or something, it's about time to come and have someone younger, someone new, someone fresh. And above all, someone who is a leader, someone who was bestowed with the responsibility of captaining their club, taking on from Mark Noble, West Ham through and through. That's a big responsibility to take on from someone who's been there through thick and thin, relegations, promotions, all that kind of stuff, to pass it on to Declan Rice when he's in his like very early 20s to where he is now and established as a man, a captain, lifting the European trophy. He can now take that kind of experience to Arsenal. Where the likes of Gabriel Jesus, that's what they did. With the likes of Zinchenko, that's what they did. That winning mentality to carry over to your project now, which has grown over the season. So it's going to be good for him in order to grow as a player. West Ham get a lovely payoff to spread around the whole club and then help them improve, not only just rely on one player. And also, I think your teammates in Arsenal, especially your English players, look at all their other colleagues, their team members winning all these other trophies. Grealish has got a Champions League. Declan Rice has got a Conference League within the same season. You know, I want a piece of that pie, so I'm going to work for it. So it's going to be good for both parties.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it all works out. Obviously, Man City are also looking at him and potentially might make a bid. I think the general consensus from a lot of people in the know is that he's likely to come to Arsenal. That's the place he wants to be at. It also keeps him in London, which I think is important for family. And it's a good platform for him to build on. Like you said, the season Arsenal have just had and the trajectory Arsenal have been on for the last couple of years, it's the right place to go to. I mean, Man City's a great place, of course. You know, they're always winning stuff, so there's no real negatives to going there from that side of things, like if you're a player. But then if you look at for him, and obviously if you're his people, looking at it objectively, look at what's happened with Calvin Phillips. Barely played at all. Jack Grealish has played a lot this season, but last season didn't really play as much as he would have liked. Phil Foden is still sporadically used, even though he's a very good player for them. So it's just a very interesting place. Look at Aymeric Laporte. When he first came in, he was a certified starter for them, and now he's likely to leave this summer. There's rumours that we know Gundogan's out of contracts; he'll be gone. There's also David Silva, not David Silva.
Diaz? Not Ruben Diaz.
No. Bernardo Silva. Got the Silva part right. Bernardo Silva is likely to be gone as well this summer. So lots of change and turnover in Man City. So potentially there could be opportunities for him to play in that midfield. But you have to also be realistic and say, am I really going to go into an environment where I'm not going to start at all? It's not saying you're going to guarantee start at Arsenal, but you have a much greater opportunity of being in that first 11 and actually being able to be a bigger part of history of the club than just being a bit part player in an already successful established system. So yeah, but I mean, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, there's lots of other transfer rumours kind of floating around, and we'll get to them in a second. But before that, just one little quick thing on the Champions League final. Man City obviously won. We did mention it last time. There's not really much more to say about that. I do want to talk about Romelu Lukaku though. This has not been the first final match where he has turned up and been an extra defender for the opposition, and unfortunately not quite found his shooting boots. Do you think, because realistically he is coming back to Chelsea for the new season, we don't know whether he'll be there to stay or if it's just in and out again, but do you think that that element of him in finals is a major concern, not just for Chelsea but for whatever club he goes to, in that he might, and a thing he needs to develop out of in his general career?
Well, Chelsea's history is all we know. We thrive on players that can rise up in those key moments, you know. Right, Kai Havertz, with the ultimately poor season he had this year, delivered when we needed him in that final in the Champions League back in 2021. He also delivered in our other, because the Club World Cup And the Super Cup, he kind of delivered there as well. So when we need these certain players, they can deliver. And of course, we can go back to the obvious one, was Didier Drogba, pretty much scored in every other final that he played. I think he won like 90% of them. So we thrive as a club where we have that player that can just come up and deliver something extra special. He had his chance and he headed it right at the keeper. And then someone else headed it right into him. So other clubs look at that. His time is pretty much going, if not gone, to play for that kind of caliber of club in the level of that in the tempo that is the Champions League final. I believe the last time he played in the European final for Inter Milan, I think he lost that one as well against Sevilla. So maybe finals aren't his thing, which is okay because for a lot of other strikers it wasn't. But at least they backed it up with other goals, whereas he's only really had a bit of a renaissance towards the end of his season, just come up right now. So like, this is his last chance. This is effectively his last chance. Age is against him. Fitness is against him. His lack of creativity is truly against him. You know, it's been rumours about him going to Saudi Arabia, which might be for the best because his best years are kind of like behind him. You know, it wasn't a great display. It was a great chance because Erling Haaland had a really quiet game. It was just a great chance to make it a little bit more interesting and, you know, spice up the game. And I'm sorry to say he blew it. So you can tell I'm not very excited about him coming back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really difficult one because he's got a long contract, still a couple more years left.
Yeah.
He paid big money for him. He's on really good wages.
90-odd million.
So however you look at it, you're going to incur a loss. We understand right now for Chelsea, you need to make some substantial sales this month. You know, the clock is ticking, the weeks are going. Otherwise, you're going to be in some issue with financial fair play. And on that note, obviously, there's been rumours or reports coming out that Kai Havertz is the subject of talks of Arsenal to pick him up. Now, I know right now a lot of Arsenal fans seeing the alleged fee of around £75 million is what Chelsea are looking for. Listen, you ain't getting £75 million for Kai Havertz. If he comes to Arsenal, I could stomach 45 just. I'd want to pay 35 for him though, or 30 because it's a cut price sale. But I could stomach 45. But what do you think about that news that's come out? Because obviously it sort of came out of nowhere.
Very out of nowhere.
I think today, was it yesterday?
The last couple of days it's come out, and I'm still like not so sure if I want to. If not say that I don't want to believe it, but if I believe it, you know, I'm just thinking, do you really want him? Do you really? What do you think?
I mean, do I want him with Kai Havertz? I think it's a tricky one because I'm not his biggest fan. I'll be honest, I'm not his biggest fan. I do feel like there is a player in there, but at the same time, I've not been convinced of him in his time at Chelsea. I think he's a bigger flop than Nicola Pepe, and Pepe is obviously not getting another chance at Arsenal. He's practically done, unless we get another surprise this summer. But with Havertz, I think you look at the profile of player, you look at what he is. He can occupy a few different positions. So he could play as an attacking midfielder, so in one of our 2-8 systems in the 4-3-3. He can also play as a striker off the middle. So that could be an option that we could try because he is 6'4". So that does give you something. He's got good movement, and I know a lot of people have likened him to like a bit of like a young Robin van Persie. So there could be a potential to kind of drag that out of him, but it's hard to say. I think from an attacking perspective, if you put him in, if you had an Arsenal midfield three, and you had him one side, you had Ødegaard the other side, and you had say Thomas Partey if that's the first team. And then, of course, up front, you had your Jesus, you had Martinelli, Saka. I think as an attacking unit, 5 of those 6 names, that looks really interesting. Mm-hmm. The positions that Havertz can get the ball in and what he can do with the ball in those positions, especially his final third delivery, because he's a good passer of the ball.
He's a very good passer.
Doesn't always get the people on the end of chances the way he would like. And also the role he plays now at Chelsea, he's the one on the end of those chances, so we're not seeing the best of him. But there's something that's serviceable there. I mean, but ultimately, I think it's going to be a tough sell. If Chelsea are entertaining it, that must mean that they're not getting much offers for anyone else. But for you, would you be happy seeing him in Arsenal, and do you think he would be a success?
Rather see him abroad. I'm always going to be a case of a player that we paid that much money for and he bangs another Premier League club, it's always going to be a bitter pill to swallow. We already had it with Salah. We already had it with De Bruyne. The last thing we want is with a player we paid that much money for, because he was a transfer record fee pretty much at the time. Because I think if we were to take 75 million for him, we'd pretty much recuperate all our losses. So the very thought of him playing, it's bad enough he got Jorginho, the potential of Mount going to Man United and him going to thing. I'll be starting to wonder that not only is Bowley playing Football Manager when it comes to buying, he's also playing it when it comes to selling. So I'm kind of confused on I'm kind of just like, how is he going to treat this? As in the past, it was always they'd only let players go to a rival club for a reason. We would, the very thought it would be like when we entertained Steven Gerrard for a while. It was never going to happen, but we entertained it. Same thing with Aguero.
Almost happened.
With Aguero, we entertained it. We tested the waters, but wasn't gonna happen. Or we tested. I swear, one time I tried to test for Rooney, wasn't happening. But it's just seeing how far we can take it. But that's my general fear, is that he will go somewhere else and he will absolutely flourish, because like you said, there's a player in there. I know there's a player in there, but it just hasn't. I think he's had a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. I think he's just not had the confidence to believe in himself to put them certain ones away. The new one signings are coming in, kind of like shaking his confidence a lot. And it's just kind of finding that striker that he can really and truly work off of, because in the time he's been there, he's had the likes of Broja, he's had the likes of Abraham, the likes of Lukaku, the likes of Aubameyang. He can't pick. It's very hard to find a form when you've got 4 different strikers coming off at any given moment. That we don't have a definitive, even Werner as well. It's like he's had no time to kind of like acclimatize himself to a striker of who he can feed off of, become a beautiful double act. These things take time, but if he is to say, we need to find that striker that's going to match him.
Yeah, that's going to be the issue. Like what would you do? And obviously for us, I think if he was to come in, I think that like there's possibilities of how it could work quite well. But I guess on that note, like if he does go, who would you look at to bring in as a potential player to replace him? Potentially, let's say you guys, Arsenal and Chelsea, end up agreeing around, like, say, a 45 rising to £55 million deal, depending on clauses. Like, what would you look to do in terms of like players to bring in?
I haven't really thought that far ahead, because I'm just anxious of that FFP coming through, because of all the money we have spent in January in particular. So you kind of want to make use of what you kind of already have, because you already have someone else that can fill this position anyway. But I haven't really given it too much thought, because that's just linking over my head. I will say this, that Nkuku's meant to be coming in from RB Leipzig. He could, that's the only real other person that's meant to be linked to be coming through to kind of take that spot. Like someone can lead the front line, because we can just so much more confident. It would be nice if we could have them both there, so he can feed off. They're both from the Bundesliga, after all, so the understanding of the systems is right there. So if he would stay for a few games and learn off Nkuku, I'd be more than welcome to that. But it's kind of seeing what our transfer kitty is going to be, if we're going to have one at all.
What if, obviously, thinking about your squad in terms of strikers, Aubameyang's there, but it's likely that he'll be gone, moved on.
He'll go.
We know that you've got the youngster David Fofana. Like, do you feel like he needs to be given a fair run of games? Obviously, Broja will be back from injury as well. So that's 2 really young strikers that you're likely to get options out of and minutes out of. So do you think between those two you might have enough to, or at least do you think it's an option worth exploring if and when Havertz leaves?
What annoyed me about Fofana is that whenever he kind of came on or started, he always did something good. He was always trying. He was always creating. He was always making himself look useful to something that was going on to help us get a result. For whatever reason, I don't know why we didn't play them. Potter didn't play him, wasn't his player, and Frank didn't play him because Frank, just didn't want to play him. So it's such a shame that I don't think we've seen the best of any of our signings, because the managers refused to play them. And with new manager coming in, hopefully because he signed some improvements. So I would like to see him given a fair cop for what he can do and work alongside some of the more established players. I don't think we've had any time to train, because yes, they came in after the World Cup and during the transfer window, but that was it, and then they were thrown in straight away. So it's like they were training from the moment they came back from the World Cup, they were training in every single match. That's why we were so open. That's why we're getting beaten left, right, and centre. We got beat by Southampton twice this year. twice, and Southampton were way off. And we got beat by what? Well, let's be real. We got beat by everyone. We got beat by at least everyone. So yeah, it was going to be hard. We're doing training every single match. So a proper time with these players will give them a chance to actually establish a bond and see what works. So I'll be very open. I want to see Fofana get more action because I think he's top player, top player.
Yeah, I think Fofana definitely deserves more opportunities. You mentioned Nkunku. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he comes in, how the system that's played. Obviously, with all of this, and there's other players you're linked to. Obviously, there's lots of talk about Caicedo as an option that you want to go to. I know a lot of Arsenal fans have had this phrase, this name, Caicedo, where they believe that Arsenal need to bring in both Caicedo and Declan Rice this summer. Otherwise, it's Armageddon and a meltdown. Lavia is also an option, guys, so don't worry about if we don't get Caicedo. There's also an option, and Southampton got relegated, so there could be a deal to be done there. But on that note of Caicedo, I mean, there's obviously also big rumours that Kante are moving on to Saudi Arabia. Another one getting the big money. But is a Caicedo a player that's on your radar? Do you think? I know you mentioned as well about balancing the books of financial fair play, but do you think that's an option that you're going to pursue this summer, or do you think that's just paper talk and you won't touch it because of the financial fair play implications?
Well, here's what I like to say is sometimes an exception because our midfielders will, if what's saying for our midfield is going to be true, our midfield is looking very, very like Kante, very likely on his way out. We lost obviously Jorginho to you. Kovacic, he's looking to come and be out. Loftus-Cheek has done. There's nothing more he can do in the blue shirt. There really is nothing more. Just
has he done much?
Huh?
Has he even done much to say there's nothing more he can do?
He's been he looked great in the shirt and he was there for a good time. But he's done. You know what? There was Sarri got the best out of him. That's the weird kind of thing. Sarri oddly had, I think, a very underrated season. He got the best out of him. He got the best out of Hudson-Odoi when he played him, and I think he had Hazard's best season in his last season. Look at the numbers and look at how he was playing. He had Hazard absolutely firing, So, I just think that since then he hasn't really kicked on from that. He hasn't really kicked on, so he can go. Caicedo is going to be one in the but then he could start in with the likes of Fernando with Enzo. So because Caicedo is someone very welcome to happy, and he's had a fantastic season. He has had a great season. They lost Basuma, got in Caicedo, and no problems at all. If anything, he had a better season than East Basuma because they're in Europe.
Yeah, he had a very comfortably better season than Basuma. Basuma was here for a good time. But yeah, speaking of Basuma and speaking of his season, obviously we know that Pochettino is now signed, sealed, delivered, confirmed. He was managing at Soccer Raid this past weekend, and
he won.
I think they won, didn't they?
He was in 4-2.
So he won. So that's a good start for him. He's getting into that winning habit. He needs to shake off the losing habit, which he picked up at the club in the other side of North London, and he took that with him to Paris and had some success, but we know he failed miserably in Europe. But then everyone does, so no surprise there. But for you, now that the dust has settled, Pochettino is in, he's confirmed. What is your kind of thoughts and expectations for this season coming forward with him? Obviously, we're going to do the predictions later on in different podcasts, but what's your early thoughts on what he's going to do at Chelsea?
I think he will improve the tempo of our play. We're very most of our games we play was very much a case of playing training every kind of single time. We either didn't take the manager seriously in Potter, or we had a manager who didn't take the situation seriously in Frank Lampard. And you saw us play. We were so indecisive. We were so unconfident. We were so easy to play against because no one exactly knew what to do. So much, and just not having that kind of bravery to take a shot when we should have taken a shot. We're passing, or we miss it completely, or it's fire thing. I don't know. So his kind of high tempo intensity and working with young, quick players, which is what we have, I think is going to be just a shot in the arm we need, and also someone who is. It's going to be nice to have a manager who's more experienced when it comes to travelling around. I know not in Europe this year, but a manager who's been around the Premier League long enough to know what is expected. Coming to a club, I mean, Spurs have their expectations for just not wanting to match it, but at least at Chelsea they will, and we have paid a buck ton of money. He's going to have a whole brand new bunch of players to him, which means he's going to be able to establish his philosophy the moment he gets in, which I think is something that Potter struggled with, because we didn't prepare for him, and then something that Frank struggled with because he wasn't there to stay for that long anyway. I will swallow my pride with the whole Tottenham thing, because I think he's more likely to win with us. But he's more like what he did with PSG. So, and he was Soccer Aid, so go figure. He got a trophy from that. So considering what we've had, I'm not going to get too proud and be like, oh, ex-Tottenham. Blah, blah, blah. No, this is a guy who knows what he's doing. And, at one point, should have won the Champions League with Spurs. Should have. So...
Could have, not should have.
No, that game was
Against Liverpool.
If they didn't start Kane, they would have won. I'm convinced.
Could have won. Not having should have won. Could. Definitely not should have
gone
won.
to exile, that's the point, isn't it?
Having that at all.
No, he's got a bunch of young players, which is what he likes. He's got quick players, which is what he likes. He got great. He got a lot out of Son, especially Son, and out of Kane as well, making him the striker that he is today. 7 out of 10 confident.
Okay. And
7
just
out
on,
of 10.
And just on that note, in terms of like, you mentioned players he got a lot out of, who do you think is going to benefit the most from him being in charge at the Bridge right now? There's a lot of players who have underperformed this season, a lot of players who can do a lot better. There's a couple of younger players who showed sparks of what they can do. But who do you think is going to, which 3 players would you say, off the top of your head now, are the ones that are going to gain the most from Pochettino as manager at Chelsea next season?
I think Conor Gallagher's going to do good because he's had 3 managers and had 0 kind of instruction. He's had one, the moment he's taken instruction from one, then another one comes in. So he hasn't had time to kind of settle. So that player that did well at Crystal Palace is still there. So I think someone like Poch, who's good at managing, I think he will benefit. I'm not necessarily he's going to be a world beater, but he was a big part of scoring a lot of our goals last year. So I think he's to help him improve on that and making him play that he can be should Mason Mount go. So I think he's going to drastically improve his confidence. I can see him working well with maybe Mudryk. Maybe Mudryk. If anyone needs a confidence boost, it's him. If anyone needs a reminder that he's a footballer, it's him. And if anyone needs a reminder that, just to shoot with your strong foot, and when you do shoot with your strong foot, shoot properly, it's going to be him. Pochettino gets goal. He will give you a lot of goals. And I think Mudryk has had times where he should have let at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 goals by now. So he'll give him that confidence to kind of shoot as well. So Mudryk, I'm giving it to Gallagher. My third player, another on front player, because going forward was always the issue. I could see him working well with, funny enough, I can see him working well with Havertz.
If Havertz is still there.
If he stays, I can see him working with the likes of Havertz to kind of settle him in to an ideal position. Should he get a proper? Should he get the striker that possibly that Pochettino wants, or what he can work with? I think he's going to work well with someone like him because there's a good. The player is there. The player is there. It's the potential is there. He just needs to focus and kind of find it. And he's not going to have time to dilly-dally with Pochettino's system. He's going to have to make a decision and make a decision quick. Havertz too many times was slow when we know he didn't need to be slow. So he's going to very much encourage him to play smarter, better, and potentially faster. Improve the tempo of the game. So yeah, Havertz, Mudryk, and Gallagher. I think should Havertz stay, I think those 3 will have a big improvement.
It'll be interesting to see how things pan out. I think those are 3 good names. I think a player that I would probably say, in addition to those, is Noni Madueke. I think the way how he ended last season, and even when he played, the flashes he showed, I think he's definitely one that I think he's going to be one to watch next year. I also want to include Raheem Sterling in that list because I think he had a lot of criticism throughout the season. It was nowhere near his best form, but he's the kind of player you look at and think, almost like Lucas Moura at Tottenham. Now, not comparing them levels-wise, because Sterling is way better than Lucas Moura, but in terms of that's a player there who you can get so much more out of. Yeah. A player that's got specific qualities that are very deadly when harnessed in the right way. Sterling's a very quick player. He's got good finishing. He's got good movement as well. He can get into those very dangerous areas. Where he's lacked a bit has been consistency at times. But when Sterling goes on a run of games and gets goals, it's a problem for everyone. So, Yeah, I think he's one that will definitely benefit from it. Him and Madu Kelly will be the two that I would say that will benefit. I think at the back, I'd probably, I'd say if Chilwell can get fit and stay fit,
He needs to get.
I think he will definitely benefit as well from having Pochettino there. I think those are my three that I'd say as the players that will benefit from it. But in general, with it, obviously your squad, we know you need to let some players go. We know that Havertz is the subject of some talks. Like we mentioned before, Kante is likely to be gone, potentially gone. There's also Kovacic likely to be gone as well. Lukaku, we want gone. Aubameyang, you expect to be gone. But outside of those obvious names, are there any players that you would say they need to go to help clear space out and allow Poch to have like a clean slate with a clean set of players that are committed properly?
My first one is more of a reluctant one, but I think he deserves a proper goodbye because he's been an amazing servant to the club and fully deserves a really good send-off, a much better one than we gave to the likes of, say, Frank Lampard in the past as a player anyway, and that's going to be Cesar Azpilicueta.
Yeah.
He tries, and he loves the club, absolutely loves the club. Came in as an unknown entity from Marseille back in 2012, same time as Hazard, funny enough. Same time as Hazard has pretty much won the vast majority of trophies he can win with Chelsea, Premier Leagues, League Cup, FA Cup, Champions League, two Europa Leagues, Club World Cup and all that kind of stuff. But as just another good servant to the club and a great leader in the last few years. But we've noticed I noticed properly the game we played you last year when we lost 4-2, the game was leaving him behind. Absolutely leaving him behind. He leaves it all out, but give him a proper send-off because he's been fantastic, He's got to move on for the grace of the club to go forward. One, I will be happy to see the back off because he's done nothing. He's Captain America, Pulisic, he can go. It hasn't worked. Has not worked. That injury that he had in 2020 has knocked him absolutely out of the wind. He was electric when he first came, but he's just never found that same level of player before, so he can go. So that's two. Who else? Loftus-Cheek, I've already said he can go because he hasn't found the form. He just hasn't found the level. Those are just three I can think of just at the moment, but there probably might be. Oh, I know, but we have to get. Would I rather lose Kepa or Mendy?
I was just about to say, would you do anything with the goalkeepers? But
who would I rather have? Kepa has had some redemption. He's had a okay-ish season. We'll give him a 4.5 out of 10. But when Mendy came back, I think it was against Forest. Good lordy. Now this is why he doesn't play, which was such a shame because he was the hottest property at one moment. He really was probably the best keeper in the world at one point. Just think he got into his head. Just think he fell off a bit of a cliff. Will make him less of a loss. I'm going to say Mendy to go because we'll make less of a loss on him. We spent a lot of money on Kepa. And he has been good this season. He just needs to work on being a bit more commanding and long shots just not being his massive weakness and not to show a hissy fit where the manager takes you off at half-time. He's got a lot to work on. So, yeah. Mendy, Azpilicueta, Pulisic.
Wow, those would be some big changes if they do come through and go happen. I guess... last episode we did talk a lot about what's going on in terms of players being in Saudi Arabia. Benzema's deal is now confirmed, moved over there. We mentioned that Kante is as a possible target. There's also the talk about Zaha's potential option going over there. Now, this is not a player that I'm expecting to go over there, but there's been lots of news about Mbappe over the weekend and him writing a letter to the PSG board saying he's not going to extend his contract because right now the contract he signed 2 seasons ago, it has an opt-in for him to add an extra year, and he has decided not to opt in for the extra year. If you believe the press, he's come out and said that don't believe everything you read in the press. So it's possible that he won't be extending his contract for another year, which would then give them the security of having him on 2 more years rather than now he's just got 1 year left to go. The issue with that from Paris Saint-Germain's point of view is that they are not going to stand for it and they're just going to put him on a transfer list and say, look, we're going to have to sell you. In your view, where do you think he's going to go and where do you think he should go?
Anywhere.
It's 2 separate things.
Anywhere but Saudi Arabia. You've got years ahead of you. Don't do what Oscar did. Don't do what a lot of these other players did where they thought they could establish themselves in another part of the world where football isn't it and they go in there for that sweet cashola. You've got years ahead of you. You've not long won a World Cup. You're going to get that Champions League. I'm convinced of it. And you've got so much more to offer, not just as a player, but as a person and as an established kind of brand. You know, look at the likes of Holland, and it's only going to get better from there for him.
I do wonder if the fact that Man City won the Champions League and Holland won it first try at Man City, if that's what's also kind of prompted the decision by him and his team to say, actually, let's move on. Let's not stay at PSG because it's been a mess.
But does it? But he could go there. He could walk into any club.
Yeah. So
he will walk.
So where do you think he should go, and where do you think he will go?
I want to be greedy.
Okay.
I'd like to have him in the Premier League.
Okay.
Have them both in the Premier League. And I think we've discussed this before. If they lost out on Bellingham, I think he'd be good at Liverpool. I think he would be good at Liverpool. Biased me because I would like him at Chelsea because he was there before and let him go when he was like really, really young. But the FFP just kind of knocks it for me. But can you imagine him and Havertz working together? Him and Havertz.
At Chelsea?
Yeah.
Well, that's if Havertz stays.
If he stays, works really well. I think Pochettino knows him. Pochettino does know him. But I see for the style of football and for the love of the game and just what they were able to offer with that electrifying pace that they once had where Mane, Salah and Firmino were first there, under a system like Klopp's, he will be electric.
So you'd have Mbappe, Nunez and Salah as the front three with Gakpo, Jota and Diaz as the alternative three. That's a really good attacking six.
Lucas, you're welcome, Marcus. You're welcome.
Great six.
That's Lucozade, relentless monster FC. Nothing but energy.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with Mbappe is that the alleged transfer fee is only going to be around 150 million. And I'm saying only, like that's small change. I mean, it is relative. It's not a lot of money. The issue is going to be his wages. So he's going to have to take a pay cut wherever he goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where you would like him to go. Where do you expect him to end up, though?
There's only one place possible in the future, and that's going to be Real Madrid. It's the only other place that's going to have him with that level of money. I know it's splashed out on Bellingham, but losing someone like Benzema is a big off the bill. It won't happen this season. It probably won't happen the season after that, but it will happen sometime eventually if he is to stay at PSG for that little bit longer. It's the only other place he's really going to go. He's not going to go to Barcelona because they've got too much on them. He's not going to go to Man City. They've already got Haaland. They don't need him. If he's going to come to the Premier League, there's only two places that he's likely to go, which is Chelsea or Liverpool. Would you have him at Arsenal?
I'd take him at Arsenal.
Would he work?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
great players, you make them work. I think if he came to Arsenal, the way how we play our system, you could play him through the middle and he would just rotate around positioning with Martinelli, how we do it right now. You could also play him from the left and Martinelli could either be a rotation option or Martinelli could try through the middle. I think there's a lot of options. When a player like Mbappe or players of that caliber come on the market, you find a way to make them work.
You do, yeah.
You don't. If you can financially afford them, and I think for Arsenal, I think the transfer fee wouldn't necessarily be the biggest issue. I think it's the wages in conjunction with it. So I think we could probably pay the 150 million. With the way we've bid for players recently, I don't see that being a big stumbling block. I think it's just that wage package would be very tricky for them to do. And also, if you bring him in on massive money, you've just renegotiated Saka, you've renegotiated Martinelli the season earlier in the year. Prior to that,
Saliba as well.
Saliba is yet to be signed, sealed, and delivered, but it's almost done. Odegaard you want to renew. I think those players will sit back and say, oh, hold on a minute, I know Mbappe is Mbappe, but we want more parity here. And then that might create a bit of an issue down the line. But again, it's a market opportunity, you take it. Yeah, I think Madrid is a likely destination for him, to be honest, if he does leave anywhere. I'd love to see him in the Premier League, and I think for football's sake, he should come to the Premier League. Yeah. I'm not going to rule out Man United as an option. I know that because they're back in Champions League football, they have serious need for a player of his caliber in their squad. Like their front attacking left quarter. So if I take or left quadrants, if you have the centre forward position and the left wing position or left striker position, that's two areas that they could put him in and fit. Because Martial isn't it, never been it, never will be it.
Scored against us though.
Doesn't matter. He's just flat as to deceive. Rashford is good, but you can't have a one man carrying the whole team. No. Sancho, it hasn't worked out, and they might have to figure out a solution there. But I think if you added Mbappe into that front three, that could be very, very interesting, providing that they get the supply to him. And with Eriksen, how he's performed, they might need to upgrade in central midfield anyway. But for Bruno, you look up and you've got that as a target to hit. You're thinking happy days. Casemiro, you're thinking, yeah, I remember playing with Ronaldo. We could just ping long balls through. So they got options there. But
or they could swallow their pride by United. They could swallow their pride, and for it to really work, they bring back someone. Now one person's left the punditry team. He can come back and get a rest to make it work like it did in the World Cup.
You think of Paul Pogba?
It worked in the World Cup. It got the bet. I saw. It's because I saw a few clips of him earlier to realise, that there was at one point he was the player that you just could not get away from, and he found Mbappe all the time in that World Cup.
2018, Pogba was one of the best players in the world.
In the world, I know it's been 5 years, but that class. Look, if Paul Scholes was still doing it in a charity soccer aid match, he didn't lose it, and I saw Perez a few years ago in a friendly match against AC Milan. Pogba lost it.
The only thing for me with Pogba is the injury record. He's barely played this year. It's such a shame. So even if he was to come back, it would be a lot. It would be a lot. I think the players would be fine. I think the fans would take a lot to welcome him back. And I think for Pogba, it's also the understanding that you're not going to come in as a first choice. You're coming in as a rotation. And then would you do Man United for a third time? Do you really want to go through that?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Rigmarole?
That's true. Yeah.
Fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't put the blame on you. As J. Cole famously said in that song. So yeah, I think that'll be a tough one. Lastly, to close out today, we've got some the fixtures have come out for the Premier League, so the first sort of 5-6 games. We just want to cover the opening week's fixtures because it does start off very spicy this season. Unfortunately, for the people out there who are predicting an Arsenal Luton start, you don't get that. So good luck. But we do get a very, very nice game to open up the Premier League season. So on Friday, the 11th of August, Burnley versus Man City. Matthew, what do you think about that fixture and who's going to get the 3 points?
Man City are going to get the 3 points, but it will not be a walkover because I watch Burnley.
It's at Burnley. It's at Turf Moor.
And it's going to be at Turf Moor. Best believe he will have them playing. I reckon it's going to go down a little bit like this. I'm going to go down a bit of history. When Chelsea played Wigan for the first time in the Premier League and we were expected to walk and Wigan took us to school. It wasn't for that lucky Crespo goal right at the end. I think it's going to go down something like that because I reckon, Vincent's going to know how they play, but also Pep's going to know how good they do. And I think they're just going to be up for it. Burnley ain't going to play this. Burnley are not playing the football that they played under Daesh. They're playing their version of sexy football. So if they get a couple of good transfers in, maybe in defence, maybe someone leading the front because, Jay Rodriguez never really did it in the Premier League. He did it all right in the Championship, but not in the Premier League. If they can get someone up front with a bit of experience, firing on cylinders on there, maybe someone like a Danny Ings, he didn't really do much at West Ham. It could be a thing, but I'm expecting Man City to win. I'm expecting.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a shock draw. 2-2 shock draw.
Possible.
I'm going to go for a shock draw. And on Saturday kicks off with Arsenal against Nottingham Forest at the Emirates Stadium starting at 12:30 p.m. As I said in the back end of last season, you guys owe us. So 3 points to Arsenal.
Revenge.
What are you seeing in that game?
Revenge.
Yeah, 3 points. Nice and simple.
Jesus hat-trick.
Wow. I'm not that optimistic, but I'll take it. And then we've got Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Luton, Everton, Fulham, Sheffield, Crystal Palace, the 3 o'clock kickoffs. So we'll start off at Bournemouth, West Ham. Are you expecting, and it's at a Bournemouth at home, are you expecting there to be a Bournemouth win or West Ham to carry on that European victory flavour parade into this new season?
If Rice is gone, I think Bournemouth will take the win.
Well, West Ham are looking at a couple of players to replace Rice with, so they might do some interesting things.
It won't be a whitewash, maybe a 1-0, 2-1.
You think Bournemouth win?
Yeah.
Okay. Brighton, Luton. Brighton are at home.
Brighton win.
Okay. Everton, Fulham. Everton are at home.
I think Everton win.
I'm going to say this in addition to that. Everton need to get off to a great start this season. Yeah. They really do because they have really chanced their luck the last few seasons in staying up. I mean, there's some teams that, they just find a way to survive and it's okay. But it really felt like last year that the chances to do it, I feel like that they really just kind of exhausted their goodwill and luck in this league. And next up, we have Sheffield United against Crystal Palace. Sheffield United are at home, freshly promoted. They had a good season as well, finishing second in the Championship. Where you see that one going?
Bramall Lane's tough place to go. I'm going to say, Hodgson's staying on, isn't he? He's not staying on. No.
It was just to keep them up, and he's done his job.
Who will they get? Interesting.
There's no new managers announced so far that I'm aware of.
For a Sheffield United win, they're like a first day thing back. So Sheffield United.
I think Palace will carry on the good form and win it. But it all comes down to who they bring in as a manager. And then the last game on Saturday is Newcastle Aston Villa at St James's Park, 5:30 kickoff. How you see that one going? That's a massive one.
Big one.
I just want to add on to that note. Mark made a really good point about Unai Emery in terms of like who he put as his vote for manager of the season. So his call was Unai Emery over the likes of, well, we put Pep in a separate category. We said Pep got it by default, but he was saying if you look at everyone else, Unai Emery's had a really great season and the numbers don't lie. And everyone forgets that Jarrod was manager for Aston Villa last season. Like, I actually momentarily ignored and just disregarded Jarrod's atrocious start. But when you look at it form-wise, Aston Villa have had a better run of form than Newcastle. Those are the two teams I think when it comes to European places, I think Aston Villa might rival, and Mark made this point, might rival Newcastle in that top five, top four place. They might look to push them to get them into that spot. How do you see that one going? Because that's going to be a really close game.
They're linked with some players, aren't they? They're linked with some serious players.
Yeah.
Really. This is going to be a tough one to call. Too tough. I'm going for a 2-2 draw on this one. I can't call it.
Yeah, I think it'll either be a draw or a late winner, but I'll say what you'll say as well. I'll go for 2-2 as well. And now on to Sunday. We have two games on Sunday. The early game, 2:00 kickoff, Brentford versus Spurs. How do you see that one going? Brentford are at home against Spurs. You have the former Celtic manager as their current boss. Very highly rated, very highly regarded. They could be an interesting entity. I'm going to go for a Spurs victory. Never thought I'd say that on the podcast, but actually going to go for a Spurs win to start the season off. I think Brentford without Ivan Toney are going to struggle a little bit, unless if they can get goals like from Shardo, or if they can bring in someone else in the interim, maybe a little loan. Maybe someone like Nketiah could go there for half a season, or even Balogun for half a season, just see how they survive in the Premier League. But yeah.
Narrow Spurs victory 2-1. Narrow victory.
We're both going for Spurs. And then the last game on the weekend is Chelsea-Liverpool, 4:30 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Are you going to start the season with 3 points, or are Liverpool going to teach you another lesson again?
I'm going to give a bit of faith. We're going to beat Liverpool for once. Like I said, 2-0 win maybe, a bit of surprise.
2-0 at the bridge. I think Liverpool, this is going to be the comeback season. I'm expecting a very close game, but I think it will end up being a 3-1 humbling.
Damn.
Yeah. It'll be a close game, but it'll be a 3-1 scoreline. So the scoreline won't reflect the action, but I think they got 3 goals in them.
Like a cheeky own goal or a flip or something.
Nah, you'll score a good goal, but they'll hit you for 3. And then the last game to start the opening weekend is Manchester United on Monday Night Football against Wolves. 8:00 kickoff. Man United at Old Trafford. Are Man United going to start the season with a win, or are Wolves going to spoil the party as they always like to do?
They're going to start well. If Neves is gone, they're going to start well. Because Neves is looking to get... He wants Champions League football, and I think he will get it.
Where do you see him going to then? Obviously not another English team.
Not Ruben Neves, no?
Where?
I'm not saying
Man United or...
He's not going to Man United. He could probably go... If you're looking to improve their options up front, he could go to Villa. If you're looking to improve their options up going forward.
Okay.
To add a bit of bolstering. A bit like what Leicester did with Iosi Perez when he left Newcastle, just bolstering with someone with a more established Premier League player. So even if they don't necessarily do massive numbers, it's an established player they can rely on, sort of thing.
Fair.
So, but no, I do like Wolves, but they're pinched too many of their good players. I think Man United, they go 3-1 Man United maybe.
I'm going to go for a 2-0 Man United win to start the season off. So I'm going for an Arsenal win, Man United win, Liverpool win, Spurs win, and a Man City. I said draw, didn't I?
Yeah.
Man City's draw to start the season. We're going to do proper predictions in a few weeks' time when everyone's together. But this will be interesting, see how things go. We're going to actually predict the first few games since we've got those fixtures for the first 5 or 6 and then see how it goes. Then we're also going to give our prediction for the table to see how that stands up. But that will be it for us for today. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you enjoy this amazing weather in the UK. And if you're listening around the world, I hope you're enjoying the heat as well. I hope it's not too hot. I hope you're staying hydrated. And I hope you're smelling fresh and looking nice. Have a good rest of the day. And we'll be back again next week for another one. Peace out.
Peace.